Fine.
Okay, so we're recording now.
Okay, so at this point, it starts the 45 minutes. Is that right?
I think
Or is
so.
that since we've been on so far?
I honestly don't remember. There was only one time last semester that we hit 45 minutes, so I don't remember.
Okay.
But
Well, teacher, if you're listening, we've already been on for 7 minutes.
okay, so we need an opening prayer. So,
Yeah,
would anybody like to volunteer that?
I'll do that if you want.
Awesome.
All right. Dear gracious Heavenly Father, we're grateful for this opportunity that we have to meet as classmates to go over these cases that we have, and we ask you to be with us so they'll be able to understand the things that we've read, so they'll be able to write the proper things to do well in the class, help us to be able to work together well and be edifying to each other. And these things we're able to pray for in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Awesome. Thanks. Okay. Does anyone want to share a spiritual thought or a scripture that they like or has been on their mind? Anything like that? No? Okay. Okay, then I guess we will just get into the Steven Carpenter case.
Okay. I got to figure out how to do split screen.
Oh, that's what I was working on right now. Okay. Well, I'll just go back and play. Okay. So, to start out, many of our discussions center on understanding success or making crucial decisions. Today, we're trying to account for failure. To begin the group discussion, quickly reconstruct the key elements of the cake financial business model.
Now, where are you reading?
Let me find it. On the instructions.
Because I had opened up the group discussion thing.
So, yeah.
We gave all the questions.
Yeah, so the group discussion, Carpenter and Horowitz instructions. It's right under, it's number 1. Under Steven Carpenter case.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. I am in the same place.
Oh, no, you're good. I just put it on a Word document so that I could answer myself as well. So, does anyone want to start us off talking about
Okay, so okay, so I mean, going over without going over point by point. This is where I was telling you, having gone through B483. Have you done 383 at Marshall?
I'm currently doing it this semester.
You're what?
I'm currently doing it this semester.
Oh, you're doing 383 and 483 concurrently?
Yeah.
Rough. Okay, I'm glad I'm not in your guys' shoes. Sorry, that wasn't meant to be mean. So you're going to be learning in 383. You've probably already started talking about your business model canvas.
Yes.
Yeah. So the whole thing behind the business model canvas is to get an entrepreneur or a founder, whoever, to really go through the idea that he or she has, to get it in the best possible position before actually going to market. And so you'll learn with this business model. So Catherine, you'll have this in 383 whenever you get around. But you've come up with a product that you think is going to work, but you've got to go out and really test it and hit the streets. They call it getting out of the building and determining what the actual users really want. So his customer value proposition, he was kind of coming at it, his view was that he wants to make some social, product that lets people invest and see what other people are doing with their investments and talk with their friends and family with the site and all that kind of stuff. And at the end of it all, it was, what he actually needed to make, he determined, was something that was very customer segmented specific, not just some general thing.
Yeah.
And so subsequently going to market was difficult. He had a lot of upfront failures because of basically having the wrong product. And so all the money was misspent up front. So, you know, basically what they said at the end of the case was right. Had he basically done it in reverse, he probably would have been successful with it. So anyway, that was kind of my assessment.
Yeah. I mean, the whole reason why he built that business model is because he talked about how there's a study that came out where if your friends invested something, people are more likely to invest in it also. And so the whole idea for the social network thing came out. For his market plan, though, it seemed like the only thing that he had to go on for the market was the technology competition, where he
the Tech Crunch 40 or whatever.
Yeah, which he lost, and so he wasn't like the big shot that he was hoping for. And I believe after that he just randomly kept. No, sorry, he didn't have his alpha version because of that, and so he lost that valuable user experience with that. And so, yeah, I would agree with you that everything kind of was a mess for him, just because he misallocated his time and his money.
Yeah, well, so specifically there, you know, it was, you know, like I said, he had his idea and he was trying to make his idea come to fruition without really establishing if that was the right idea, right? So he did a couple focus groups, but it was like, it wasn't geared towards specific segments. He just had people come in and say, hey, you know, what do you think? And as he admitted, his first product was so heavy into technology, it wasn't really user friendly. So he was seeing those huge, you know, horrible numbers where people would go to the site or something and it was like, I can't remember what the rate was. The conversion rate was like 0.02 or something like that. And so nobody was wanting to stay with it because it really, like, the front end of the business wasn't attractive. Really pushed people away. And that, again, this, as I was reading this, all I could think about was the business model canvas that you're going to be working with, how much they drive home. Make sure you've really explored and interviewed people and the right people to take what you think your product should be and make it what it needs to be. Because a lot of times they end up being completely different. In fact, not to be sidetracked, but 383 is actually a super good class. If either of you have intentions of starting a business, it's really good information to have. It'll save you a lot of time from screwing up. So, you know, to me, that was the big difference between this guy and like the second case, where those guys had already been in, you know, well-established businesses. They had a track record. They knew how stuff worked, and they already had a bunch of money from working with other companies. So it's kind of a night and day difference between cases. But yeah, so I mean, subsequently, I think his cash flow was, you know, poorly driven because he was throwing money at the wrong thing at the wrong time. Anything with you, Catherine?
I mean, the main thing I noticed was that, because I'm pretty sure I started 383 and then I had to drop it, but I learned it somewhere in one of my classes that you have to fail fast instead of failing hard. And so since he didn't get out a prototype to anybody to test, and he just did like the questions and the surveys and stuff, then he didn't really know. And it said it in the case, like, people don't know what they want until they kind of work with it. And they don't know what they don't like until they work with it. And so since he didn't have a prototype to kind of give to him, say, hey, work with this for a week, tell me what you think. I think that's where he really failed, was that he had
Mhm.
nothing for the people to work with to let him know if they liked how it worked, what they didn't like, to see what people used, what they didn't use. And so that's where I think it could kind of go with the go-to-market plan. He wasn't really prepared.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Like I said, when they were laying that whole thing out, I literally went, man, this needed to just be done in reverse, and then it would have been fine. Like even picking up that one guy, what they call him, Low or Lou or whatever that guy's name was,
Oh, yeah.
at the end, that came in and basically said, you're putting your time in the wrong place. You need to switch, your percentages around. But well, so the trick is, so on number 2, it's asking, was this doomed to fail from the beginning, or was it promising business model? I would say the business model itself probably was doomed to fail, maybe not the business itself.
Yeah, I think the idea was a good idea. The business model wasn't thought out and put together well enough.
Yeah, because it gives us, so me personally, and again, maybe I don't understand the industry enough, but like I wrote in my write-up that we turned in earlier that I thought the business itself was kind of funky just because it was relying on networking with a bunch of different investment companies, Fidelity or Schwab or whoever. And I was trying to understand why an investment firm would want to divulge their investment strategies to them so that Joe Blow could come in and use them at a lower rate. I would think that would like undermine what their whole purpose is for existing. And, even though a few companies expressed interest in joining with his idea, ultimately nobody did. So I wonder if it was, to me, that's just competition for them. I don't know why. Fidelity goes, oh, you can go to cake.com and just do it on your own. Well, you don't need us. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense. That's just me.
The idea wasn't necessarily to be the investment company, is to mix all your different investments portfolios into one program. So if you had investments at Schwab and Fidelity, it mixed both of them together so you could watch both investments at the same time instead of going to like schwab.com or whatever, or going to fidelity.com to go see your investments. So that was the reason why they made the deals with all the different investment companies.
But weren't the because they were trying to reach 3 customer segments ultimately at the end, and it was like the day trader, the semi-involved, and the guy that just shows up once a year or something like that. But wasn't its purpose was to allow those investors to look and make changes and whatnot, or did I read that wrong?
So, I mean, its purpose was for the social network, for them to be able to do that so they could see the top performers at, like, say, Schwab or investors and be like, oh, I want to change my investments in Fidelity to match what this guy's doing at Schwab, not necessarily change the investment company. And people would talk to each other saying, oh, you should invest in that, you should invest in that.
Oh, see, because I understood it as you were getting like information about how these different companies were investing and comparing that to what you were doing on your own. So maybe I understood what their purpose was wrong.
I mean, sorry, going back to the question, I don't think necessarily the business model was, part of it was doomed from the beginning. I think the value proposition was very good. Just when he hit the customer segment and getting the market fit, he just didn't do enough research to figure out that people would rather have preferred that Cake's program do the investing for them instead of them having to switch their investments from one section or one stock to another. or whatever they invested in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think yeah, well, so it depends on how we're defining business model. Are we defining business model as how he's structured his business to achieve success, or what the business is itself? You know what I mean? Because like his MVP was all off in the beginning. Have you guys done MVP yet?
Yeah.
Catherine, have you done that yet?
It sounds familiar.
It's minimum viable product.
Yeah.
So you're trying to find out what that
Yeah,
that
that's
basic, most simple product is to use, because his product was, he found out, was the wrong thing. You know.
yeah, that's kind of what I was hinting at with that he didn't get out a prototype. I couldn't remember the exact termination or terminology that was used. But yeah, I know what you're talking about. I think another thing, because it talks about like which assumptions turned out to be false, was that he didn't like who he thought was going to use it. I guess his consumer group was wrong, because he thought it was going to be like from 18 to 40-year-olds of all types and everything. But then it turned out that really the only people who do investing and really care about investing that much are like the older guys. And then he found out, he was like, well, they don't really do social media. So then that kind of didn't work out at all.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Like I said, one of the other concerns I had was by the time he finally figured stuff out, I think he was kind of, potentially he could have been at a point where now you're having to go back to maybe the same consumers and go, hey, no, now I've actually got the product figured out, give it a shot now. I think a lot of times as consumers are like, well, if the product sucked once, I'm not going to be really tempted to go try it again. And so, he could have maybe tried to throw more money at it to make it last longer, but I don't know. Could have been difficult to do that. Might have just blown through a bunch more money.
Yeah.
However, I'm looking at the time here. We may want to. Okay, so why don't we just, can we do, let's see if we can do this quick.
Well, I was going to say, we've kind of already discussed number 3 where it talks about
what he could have done differently. Yeah.
I've kind of put in my 2 cents for that question at least.
Okay, so for number 4, if we were just going to sum it up, what do you guys think the main reason for the failure was?
I mean, kind of just what I've been saying all along. He went into making the product blind. I don't feel like he did enough research with a prototype or MVP. And because of that, he found out too late what people actually wanted or needed.
I would agree with that.
So
what about you, Marshall?
Instead of falling fast, he fell hard.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, I don't think he tested really any of his assumptions. It brought up a quote, and he's like, there's no way you could have learned this up front through interviews or focus groups. But honestly, I think you could have learned a lot of this through interviews and focus groups.
Yeah. Yeah, I would have, it doesn't really allude to it in the case, but I would have been for sure, setting up a focus group of people who are active investors, not just like pull in some people. They made it sound like they just got a focus group together and said, hey, here's an investment opportunity. What do you think? Yeah, I agree with you, Marshall. Okay, so.
Anything else that like really stuck out to anybody in that case that they felt was important, or anything before we move to the next one?
Not for me personally. I think we've kind of circled it decently enough.
Yeah, I think we're good on that case.
Okay, perfect. Then we can go on to the next one. So the first question was to discuss if the VC industry was attractive for this company to enter in 2009, and then what the competition was like, the typical fate of new entries, why, and then what the trends are in the VC fund performance.
Well,
Go ahead.
from what I remember, the trends were not very good at this particular time. We're coming off of a bad market, and VC trends were like, what did it say? 8 point something percent, where like stock market was 20%. And they kind of, to me, I could have been reading it wrong again. They made it sound like the VC industry was kind of stale. Everybody was kind of doing the same thing, and only the big hitters were getting, the big deals. I don't know. To me, it kind of left room for an innovative idea like theirs.
Yeah, so I found the exact numbers. It's 3% of the VC firms generate 95% of the industry's return, and that 3% doesn't really change. So the top 3% is usually the only ones that ever really got much of a return in this industry.
Yeah, so that affects the fate of the new entrants into the industry. It's
Yeah.
hard to break in doing the same thing that others are doing.
And then 40% of the companies fail when they enter.
Mm-hmm.
So like with those, it's obvious that like VC industry wasn't really a smart choice necessarily to enter. It wasn't very attractive, I guess, for normal people, I guess, trying to enter a market. I would think, at least I wouldn't enter it.
I would kind of counter that. I think it'd be actually a great market to enter, just because you would happen to see 3% of the companies doing the exact same thing, and so there's huge opportunity to just change something very small and be able to exceed past their performance, which is exactly what A16Z did. Is they just changed some minor things and they just took off, and it made all the other companies really jealous. If you look at their responses, they're like, "Oh, we don't invest in the stock market or whatever," and so they were getting really upset at what A16Z was doing. But I mean, it's not something totally different than what they were doing,
Yeah, well, so I think it could be looked at both ways. I think if you had the mentality, like if you had only worked with VCs, and then you were going to start your own VC firm, I could see how you would say, oh, only the big dogs get to eat, so I'm not even going to bother. These guys just happen to be coming at it from another angle and happen to have that, I don't know if you want to call it an aha moment, but when they were talking with that talent agency guy and understanding how he networked to grow his business through networking. And so they did a network VC type of thing. So yeah, that gave them a good opportunity then to be standalone and not be like everybody else. And it obviously paid off. Their success happened pretty quickly. So I guess it would just depend on where you were coming from mentally.
Yeah, I think that's true.
But yeah, a lot of times though, when they were describing all the things that the firms are doing and stuff, I was just like, man, I've got no idea what they're doing.
Yeah. And I guess that kind of leads into the next question when it talks about like what silver lining did this company see and how did they plan to succeed. It's like what you said, Marshall, like they had those different ideas, and they had the idea to be not just a VC company, but the where they would be able to help people find people to help them, I guess. But whatever, I don't know what the word I'm trying to look for is. Networking. That's the word.
They spent a lot of money though. They used a lot because they hired a ton of people, and like this was a venture that they had to have a bunch of money to start up with.
Yeah.
I mean, they talked about the hundreds of millions, but like I don't think Joe Blow is going to start up this firm like they did.
Oh yeah, no.
There was a lot of technical and a lot of personnel stuff that had to happen for this to work.
Okay, so just so you know, we've got just under 9 minutes left.
Okay.
So I can go to number 2 real quick.
Okay.
Pretty much, how does A16Z's business model influence the abilities of SourcePick Win compared to other VC firms? I didn't fully understand the SourcePick Win myself. Like, I kind of got it. So if anybody else understood it better.
They have really good relations with journalists, and so they talked about that. And so journalists would suggest to them like uprising entrepreneurs. Also, they provided services of coaching. You'd coach the businesses, not necessarily what to do, but how to do it. And then they offered, again, money to start up. But they're investing in businesses to succeed rather than just investing money in. And so, everyone they hired was a tech genius. They had already started their own company. They had already sold their own company. They already all had majors in technology. And so every single person that got interviewed was talking to someone that originally had the expertise to know what was going on. Unlike all the other venture capitalist firms, who was just some Joe that had been investing for his entire life.
Yeah, and one of the things that caught my attention was what was I going to say here? How, and again, this gets back to that networking thing. I believe Horowitz said that, when somebody comes in for money, and they are the founders, they're not looking to like immediately replace them, and just use their idea. Like they're saying, people would go to a VC firm and the VC goes, okay, well, we're going to need to immediately, hire a CEO to run your company. And I remember him being kind of off-putted, like, wait a minute, this is my idea. Why should I not be running it? And so it made it sound like A16Z puts the network in place so that the founder can come in and use the tools there to build the business instead of them just saying, okay, I know you've got the idea. Now we're going to start putting the right team in place to take over your business.
Yeah.
Did I understand that right?
I think so.
Yeah.
So there's a few more questions that go with number 2, but to jump down to number 3, if we put ourselves in the shoes of the founders of the company, we have to decide whether or not to seek to double your assets under management. And the vote has to be unanimous. So, and then it says to consider the following as you decide. How many portfolio companies can one general partner reasonably support? Are there any economies of scale in the business? And will you have to hire more operating team people? If so, will the partners actually make more money by doubling the assets, or will that go to the more hires?
Well, kind of addressing the final question, they did say that when they hired more partners, that it came out of the founders, not out of like the other partners that had been hired afterwards. However, if more money's being made, you would think that's going to offset. Me personally, as far as a vote, I was undecided. I didn't know about necessarily doubling assets. I was into the diversification into maybe something other than Silicon Valley, just to not have your eggs all in one basket. But I don't know. They've been in business for 4 years? Do they have enough under them to go ahead and try to double?
Yeah, that was kind of the same boat I was in. I definitely thought that they should do the diversification and either go into different I personally didn't think the different areas was the smartest. I thought doing the different types was really smart.
You mean different segments, not different geographies?
Yeah, different segments. But that I think it would be hard because, like the first question, like how many portfolio companies can one general manager actually support, like before they're stretched too thin?
Well, what was it that it said? I'm trying to remember what it said. Was it 10 or 100? I can't remember. It wasn't that big of a number.
I'm not sure.
I don't remember.
But well, so while she's looking that up, what did you think, Marshall?
Yeah, I understood it as like doubling assets would help them diversify their portfolio. Maybe I was wrong in that interpretation, but I was thinking that if they doubled their assets, it'd be wiser to diversify just because they already have their economies of scale in the tech segment.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you look at all the major tech companies today, they went through A16Z. But then if they did double their assets, they could hire a whole other group of people for a completely different industry and just do the same thing they did with technology. Just get a bunch of experts together, do the same thing, and then snuff out their competition that way.
In the interest of time, I'm watching that thing tick down. I don't know if you guys are seeing that. Are you seeing that too?
Yeah, it just says less than a minute.
I would actually, no, mine says minute 27.
Oh, mine says less than a minute, so I'm not really sure.
Yeah, it says remaining. Well, I would actually go with what Marshall said, doubling with the intents of diversification.
Yeah, I think that is a good option.
Okay, so if we only have a couple seconds, what was the last thing we're supposed to do? Some summary or something?
Yeah, summarize it, but I'm not really sure how we're supposed to do that. So.
Okay, quick summary. Steven did his business backwards, and Horowitz and Andreessen need to double and diversify. There's our summary.
There we go. Okay, and for the paper, we can just do through email. Figure out who wants to do what. It just has to be submitted by 11 p.m. tomorrow night, and then we need to pick someone who will like put it all together. Unless everyone has Google, and we can use Google Docs.
Yeah, we can. I've got Google. We can use Google Docs.
But sorry, Zach, that you forgot.
No, oh my gosh! I just got on to do my homework, and I was like, I saw your emails. I was like, oh my gosh, I totally forgot.
That's okay.
We just finished.
I can send the link. I'm gonna upload it to YouTube so I can submit it.
Yeah.
And I can send that link in the email if you want to look over it.
Yeah, I will for sure. I'm so sorry.